Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. We are going to discuss the escalating situation between Iran and Israel with the latest updates. Israeli airstrikes achieve direct impacts on underground area of Natanz nuclear site. That has been said by the United Nations nuclear watchdog. We have also seen the latest media interaction of US President Donald Trump, in which he has said, I cannot say that if the US will strike Iran. We have been threatened by Iran for many years. I have been saying for many years that Iran can't have nuclear weapons. I've said many times that a nuclear deal should be reached with Iran. Nobody knows how long the Israel-Iran war will last. Today, Iran wants to talk, but it is too late now, unquote. We'll also talk about the important meeting President Donald Trump had with his top aides that lasted for 80 minutes in the Situation Room. And he has also spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Important statements that came from his side earlier were a warning to Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei that he was an easy target and demanded unconditional surrender without defining what that would also mean. And he had also said that we now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. We had also seen important statement that came from Iran's Supreme Leaders Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Let me quote: Iran will stand firm against an imposed war, just as it will stand firm against an imposed peace. That this nation will not surrender to anyone in the face of imposition. Those who know Iran and its history know that Iranians do not answer well to the language of threat, and Americans should know that any US military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable consequences. We've also seen Iran's UN envoy saying, let me quote, Iran will respond to Israeli strikes strongly and without restraint. We will not show any reluctance in defending our people's security and land. We will respond seriously and strongly without restraint. We have also seen a statement coming from Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai. Let me quote that one as well. Diplomacy never ends, but Iran no longer trusts Washington. The war was imposed in the midst of diplomatic process. We were supposed to be in Muscat on Sunday, and they started this aggression early on Friday. Iran has been all in for diplomacy and dialogue. All these important matters on this particular developing situation up for discussion in today's show. We'll also be talking about the important significant visit of Pakistan's Chief of Army Staff, Field Marshal Syed Asim Munir. He'll be having an important meeting with US President Donald Trump. Also will interact with the cabinet members. This particular meeting and the visit of the Chief of Army Staff comes in the backdrop of when there has been a praise on the part of Donald Trump regarding Pakistan's counter-terrorism efforts. We have also seen that very important, significant role played by President Donald Trump as far as that ceasefire that was reached between Pakistan and India after India's naked aggression against Pakistan. We'll be taking that important thing up for discussion in today's show as well. For all these, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Almas HaiderNaqvi, foreign affairs expert. Mr. Naqvi, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Saeed Khalid, former ambassador. Mr. Khalid, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Naqvi, let's talk about this particular latest media interaction of President Donald Trump, in which he says that I cannot say that if the US will strike Iran. What sense do you make of it? Is it kind of an indication that there is a highly likelihood that the US could become a direct party into this particular conflict that is unfolding between Iran and Israel at the moment?
So at this moment, if we look the context of his statement is trying to put maximum pressure on Iran. This is a calculated strategy. The reason I think what the Israeli regime was expected, that how they can damage their sites, they couldn't achieve their goals. Israeli regimes and Netanyahu's objective, if we can list before the starting, they were assuming, based on the assumption that the nuclear Iran is a threat to the Israeli regime. So the first objective, if we can say, that they eliminate the nuclear facilities. This is the first objective. The second objective of the Netanyahu was weakening militarily, and the third one is regime change. So far, I'm not convinced any sort of Netanyahu's actions produce something substantial with regards to its objectives. Yes, Iran has suffered serious damages in terms of loss of their leadership, and they are suffering from the hard strikes on the civilians, and even in the nuclear sites. So, as far as the objectives are concerned, still I believe that Israeli regime, Netanyahu, couldn't achieve those objectives. Now, involvement of US will be translated and interpreted as a failure of Israeli strategy. Failure in terms that Israel cannot hit hard to the Iran. Yes, Netanyahu will be successful in terms that he wants to drag US into the war. So this is the most likely.
So as far as you describe the objectives, the three major objectives that you have already described, do we understand that these objectives are solely of the Israeli side, or there is any sort of a common line as far as those objectives with regard to this particular current situation as it is developing with the US as well on the same line?
I think for a US involvement will be so disastrous. Involvement of United States is just not so simple, because it will have greater implications to the regional peace and stability. For example, if US involves, I don't think so the rest of the great powers.
So you already mentioned that if the US is involved in this particular conflict directly, and by looking at this particular statement that President Trump says that he cannot say that if the US will strike Iran, and if that particular thing happens, you are of the view that it would be a manifestation of the failure of Israeli strategy. Could you expand a little on that? If it happens to be the failure of Israeli strategy, so does it naturally compel the US to become the part of this one directly?
The failure as the individual state cannot make a difference in their use of force. But it simultaneously we can say that Netanyahu was ambitious to drag in US into this conflict. So in that case, Netanyahu will be successful to drag the US into this conflict. But I think it will not be a simple and an easy one.
By getting a failure with that strategy, it is compelling the US to become part of this particular conflict. Is that so?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Khalid Saeed, Saeed Khalid, when we talk about this particular statement, that when President has just most recently said that he does not know whether America will strike Iran, what does that basically mean by the tone of this very expression?
My own reading is that the United States does not want to be part of this war. However, in view of the extreme Israeli pressure through their friends and powerful, players in the US, President Trump basically, he said, all right, you want to have a go at it, go ahead. So he gave the green light to Israel to attack Iran. And we saw that the attack was massive, it was widespread, it was directed at leadership, at military people, at nuclear sites, at economic sites, at very, very important centers in Iran. And after 2 days, 3 days, Iran is retaliating. I mean, Iran retaliated the same day, but what I am saying is that after a couple of days of war, both sides are hitting each other. And maybe Israel did not achieve the objectives, as Naqvi Sahab said, which it had set for itself. And hence, further pleas to the United States, to President Trump, to put pressure, to increase pressure. And I think whatever President Trump has said over the last 2 days, that is more like increasing pressure on Iran. But I see a certain contradiction. Because on the one hand he says, surrender unconditionally. And today he is saying that I don't know how long this will continue. It shows that he is himself, he is not sure, despite his, his boastful demeanor and his claims and all.
So is it because of the fact that the kind of response Iranians came up with, seen their armed forces spokesman also saying that this particular damage and destruction that has been inflicted on the Israelis, it was not imagined by them, it was not expected by the Israelis as well as President Trump. So on one side, if he wants Iran to completely and totally surrender, and on the other side, as you already said, there is a little bit of contradiction as to what he is saying. There are mixed signals from his statements that one can clearly get. Is it because of that fact that Iran has come with a very strong response to this aggression of Israel?
Well, Jawad...
that's why he's saying that he doesn't know that how long it is going to last.
First of all, Israel should have known that Iran is no, a walk in the garden. Iran was attacked through Iraq. In 1980, the war continued for 8 years, and despite all the support, monetary support, arms and everything, Iran could not be defeated. So, if anyone has studied history, would know that Iran is very resilient, very determined, very committed, and they have a long history of, warfare also. So, anyone who cannot judge this has nobody else to, find fault with than themselves. They should have known that this is how Iran is going to answer. And as far as claims that we control the skies, all right, you go on controlling the skies, but the country is there, the land is there, the people are there. How does your controlling the skies put an end to the war?
Is that a manifestation of just a warning or a threat that controlling the skies completely and also telling where the supreme leader is hiding? So
yes,
that's then an indication that they could strike at their will. Is that so? What we get out of this particular statement?
I would say that these are pressure tactics. The CNN was quoting one opinion survey today, which says that 69% Americans do not want to become part of this military action. So, that's another indication that despite all the support Israel, they say, fine, we will support Israel by every possible way. We will go on supporting Israel. We will go on keeping pressure on Iran. But from there to take the step of attacking Iran, American public is not in favor.
Okay, so American public is not in favor of that. There are opposing voices from within the ranks of the MAGA group also. At the same time, there is a factor, another factor that is at play, which is the staunch support of the Republicans towards Israel. Given all these factors at play, we've also seen the regional countries, other major powers of the world also calling for restraint, also calling for de-escalation. Some, for example, Russia has offered mediation to de-escalate this situation and resolve the Iranian nuclear issue through dialogue. Likewise, we have seen IAEA Director General has also offered mediation and resolving this issue through talks. I'll come back to you for your understanding as to when these all factors at the same time are at play, what happened to be the options at the hands of President Donald Trump in particular. Now we are on to being joined on the phone line by Mr. Brigadier retired Shahid Jagir, senior analyst. Brigadier Jagir, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. By looking at this particular statement by President Donald Trump, when he says that we have complete control of the skies of Iran, is also given a warning regarding as to where the Iranian supreme leader is hiding. How do you look at this particular statement? Also, we've had the discussion as to what were the stated objectives as far as Israeli regime is concerned. And do you think any sort of objective out of those stated objectives by the Israelis have been achieved so far or not?
Thank you very much, Tanyo. I would say that this issue has a repercussion for the whole world, where there was a negotiation going on between Iran and the USA about the nuclear issue, and suddenly the Israelis they attacked it unprovoked. So they have literally sabotaged the process of dialogue which was going on. So the diplomacy came to an end. Now, as far as your question is concerned, in the war, there is always propaganda, pressure tactics going on. I don't think that the Americans would be that unaware of the history that that they will hit the Iranian leader. So although they have done it as far as the military leaders were concerned, but coming on to the supreme leader, it means a lot. And as your panel has talked about, that Iran is a history. Iran is a civilization. Iran has fought the Iran-Iraq war and was not subdued despite all the efforts of the West and the US and Iraq. So it does not seem that this thing will end over here. Israel know that it will not be an easy go because they are so far whatever they have the way the Iranians have responded. It was not within the dreams of the Israelis. But the thing is that the diplomacy should take the lead, and Mr. Trump should think 10 times by standing behind wholeheartedly.
Lead. Brigadier Jagir, a number of points to be discussed further. I want your elaboration regarding that. Also, the kind of destruction and the damage that has been inflicted as far as the Israelis are concerned, they did not expect that to be happening over there. The armed forces spokesperson of the Iranian also claims to have inflicted a greater loss, damage and destruction on the Israelis. Also, yesterday saying that over 540 different sites were targeted within Israel. Now, do we understand an utter and a complete failure when it comes to that very much highly talked about Israeli defense system, especially when you talk about that Iron Dome?
Look, Israel has three types of air defense system. One is David Sling, the second is the Iron Dome, the third is the Arrow system. Every what we call it the defense system has its own inherent disadvantages. It cannot stop every missile. When the missiles are fired in such a number, it is very difficult to counter all those. A few of them do penetrate. It always happens. So it is not possible for Israel to stop every missile, every drone which is fired from Iran's side. And Iran will retaliate because this aggression which they have done, I don't know, personally I'm worried that the missiles, the atomic sites which they have hit, what is the state of the radiations over there? If that's the case, it will be very alarming. It will be very alarming for the world. And IAEA should intervene and see that. Second thing is that Israel is adamant to take on Iran. It's not a today's talk. You have seen Israeli Prime Minister talking in the UN time and again that Iran is just a week away from the bomb. That week was in 2002 and today is 2025. So how can one believe, how can a word believe such a liar that 10 years before he was saying the same thing is occurring today? So they were, it is just an aggression which the Israelis have done. I think the sense should prevail at the US side. They should bring the Israel on the negotiation table. The war must stop. And
there must be an effort to bring Israelis to the negotiations table. Brigadier Jagir, I'll come back to you for your further understanding regarding a number of different other aspects as well. Mr. Naqvi, when President Donald Trump in this very latest media interaction has also said today Iran wants to talk, but it is too late now. What does that mean? Is the negotiation period or that particular option of resolving this particular issue through dialogue is completely over? On the other side, we have seen Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman saying that diplomacy never ends, but Iran no longer trusts Washington.
Yes, of course, at this point of time, how can Iranian leadership trust the Trump or American leadership? Because, you know, the last time Iranian were signed the deal JCPOA, United States unilaterally withdraw that agreement. So
even after their withdrawal,
yes,
even after their withdrawal from the US side under the first presidency of President Donald Trump, it was Iran still into negotiations. That is what Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said, that this particular aggression happened when we were supposed to be in Muscat on Sunday, and they started this aggression early Friday, and this happened in the midst of the negotiation process regarding the nuclear deal that were already underway.
You know,
so the point which is to be noted over here, that Iranians, despite that pulling out of the United States firstly, they were still into negotiations.
And still they believe on diplomacy. They are a very good diplomat. They understands the realities and the conditions, but how they can trust. Now at this point of time, I believe that the Iranians don't trust on the American leadership, because they were ready to negotiate. They were sitting on the negotiating table. So sabotage this?
What's required at this particular moment? Okay, so this aggression continues on the part of the Israelis. Mixed sort of statements coming from the United States of America. We've also seen, we'll talk about that aspect also, Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered, he's in fact reiterated his offer of mediation, and also the Kremlin spokesperson saying that it was the reluctance on the part of the Israelis.
Yes, of course.
Right? We've seen that concern has been shown by China as well. Regarding the Western powers, France has taken the lead. It has also urged for de-escalation. We have seen the European Union, a collective statement coming from them as well, except for Germany. That is actually supporting Israel's stance at this particular point in time. What is the way forward? If this particular aggression continues on the part of Israelis, mixed signals coming from the United States of America, what are the options at the hands of the Iranians at the moment?
Look, dialogue and diplomacy is the best option for everyone. But now at this point of time, when the Iranian leaderships are sitting on the table, they're negotiating with the United States. Israel basically sabotaged this deal. Netanyahu not just sabotaged this deal, but I believe that it was a violation of international law, blatant aggression on a sovereign state based on assumption that Iranian potentially a nuclear bomb is threat to my state. So this is the assumption. Based on assumption, Netanyahu has used the force against Iran. The second, I think, Israeli actions put the world at the nuclear risk, because if, as a consequence, Iranians decides to get out of the NPT, then your nuclear governance structure will be irrelevant for the rest of the world. So, and then third one, these military actions by the Israeli leadership shake the confidence on diplomacy. So Iranians were clear; they were sitting on the table. It's not fault of the
now,
Iranians.
what are their
Now,
options at this particular point in time?
Whatever Iranians are doing, they are doing in response, a retaliation. So, in my understanding, for being a student of international politics, if you want to have a good, substantial or consequential dialogue or discussion, for Iranian leadership, they will sit with the strength.
Right.
So this is
Right, Mr. Saeed, Khalid, looking at this particular very statement, when President Trump says today Iran wants to talk, but it is too late now. What does that mean? So that particular phase or any expectation of the de-escalation of this particular conflict at this particular point in time is completely over by looking at this statement, that they don't want to enter into further negotiations with Iran. And in that scenario, if that is the case, what options lie with the Iranians at the moment?
I think that the negotiation process is the major casualty of this war. And one of the objectives of the Israelis, they pushed the Americans to the point saying that, look, you are not going anywhere with this dialogue. Let us take action now. So, to me, that amounts to killing the dialogue. And if you look at the history, that the agreement between Iran and the major powers, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was signed in 2015 under President Obama. And Trump throughout opposed it. Israel also opposed it. In 2016, Donald Trump gets elected, and in January 2017, he takes over as president. And the pressure increases. And he's sympathetic to Israel, that indeed this was a mistake, this should not have been done. And in 2018, the following year, he scrapped the agreement.
Yeah.
And now it is, I think it's buried.
Despite that opposition that came from the other members of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action,
Yes.
right? But there has been a little bit of shift as far as the European nations are concerned. They've issued a collective statement. They've also asked for the de-escalation at this particular moment. We've also seen French President Mr. Emmanuel Macron also calling for a ceasefire and de-escalation. What about Germany? I mean, do you see a substantial shift in what?
What I see is that this phase of, intense war, this may come to an end. It may taper down. It may be seen as an impasse, as a kind of dead end, not completely like Russia and Ukraine, because their war goes on in now. It's been 3 years the war goes on. Here maybe there will be less action, there will be a deadlock, and then everybody will maybe think and plan.
So
it's all right for the Iranians to say that, you know, diplomacy never stops, but to what purpose? What is the objective?
So
What
in
will
case
it
of
achieve?
that deadlock, if this particular situation goes to a stalemate,
Yes.
then what? What's from there onwards?
That may be considered as the
A
best
prolonged
outcome.
stalemate or something
That would
eventually
be a good outcome, actually.
a stalemate?
Stalemate. Yes. This is what people have been saying about the Ukraine war, that it may end as a stalemate. It hasn't ended, it goes on. But here, if both parties, Iran, America, Israel, if they all three think that, okay, it's time, you know, now to stop intense kind of war, so that is what is stalemate. And that will not be a bad outcome.
Okay, so what about the options with the Russians? They've reiterated their call for mediation, but as per their statement, the reluctance lies with Israelis. Is there any substantial role do you see from them coming at this particular
What
point?
Donald Trump is saying is his gut reaction, that it's too late. And Israel will say it was never needed. It was never going to succeed. So with this kind of, you know, mindset, Russia can try, China can try, Saudi Arabia can try, Pakistan can try, many parties can try. But if the two main actors, which is Israel, backed by the United States, if they cannot take it forward, then I don't see any progress.
Right, Brigadier Jagir, now we've also seen there are a number of voices from within the United States of America. We've also seen an opposing group from the MAGA group. They are not interested to get America dragged into this particular conflict. We have seen that staunch support on the part of the Republicans for Israel by looking at these statements of President Donald Trump. And then one of the very important senators over there, Senator Lindsey Graham, saying when he talked to President on Monday, let me quote him, I think is very calm and very resolved. I don't think Israel can finish Fordo without our help, and it is in our interest to make sure this program is destroyed as much as it's Israel's. And so if there is something you need to do to help Israel, do it. We've also seen General Michael Eric Kurila, the top U.S. commander overseeing the operation in the Middle East, also saying that the U.S. now stands in a strategic window of an opportunity to secure its national interests in the Middle East, including preventing a nuclear-armed Iran. By looking at these two statements, what's your hunch?
I think looking at the personality of the Mr. Trump, you will always see him first. At first, he talks too big, and then he negotiates. Take the case of the tariff issue or any other thing. He is basically a businessman who know how to make the deal. One. Second thing is that, yes, it is in the interest of the U.S. that the Iranian nuclear program should finish. But at the same time, as you have said, that there are voices in the Congress, there is a voices in the public that we should not get into the war in the Middle East. America has a problem that in case Israel gets weakened in the Middle East, it has it loses a very, very strong ally. So that is what is important for the U.S. at the moment. But the Iranians are not going to subdue, as Mr. Donald Trump has said, that unconditional surrender. The diplomacy must get into the lead. Russia and China should come forward along with the UN to de-escalate, stop the killing of the people, whether it is Israelis or the Iranians, and sit on the negotiating table. Despite their very effort of the Israelis, in which they have flown a big number of aircraft to destroy the nuclear installations of Iran, they have not been able to do it completely. So that means that it is not possible that they can militarily do it.
Militarily do it. I get your point well, Brigadier Jagir. There is another very important development, the significant visit of Chief of Army Staff Field Marshal Syed Munir. He'll be having a meeting with US President Donald Trump. He'll be interacting with the cabinet members over there as well. We've seen a very important role played by President Donald Trump when it came to Indian aggression against Pakistan, the recent standoff, and then because of the mediation of President Trump, the ceasefire was reached. We've also seen, as a matter of fact, that President Donald Trump praised Pakistan's counterterrorism efforts during his State of the Union address. How important and crucial this particular visit and interaction of the Chief of Army Staff do you expect it going to be with President Donald Trump?
Yes, it's a very, very important interaction which is going to happen. And as Mr. Trump has highlighted that he is ready to negotiate on the Kashmir with India. And we are looking for this. I think this will be the dominant point in the agenda of the meeting. Plus the Indus Water Treaty, which has been set aside by Modi, that would be another one. That as far as the counter-terrorism is concerned, ISI operations in Afghanistan is a source of concern for US, which Pakistan has played a very vital role to counter these. And Mr. Trump will like to discuss this and enhance the counterterrorism cooperation with us. Also, maybe he might like to see our assessment of Israel-Iran war. So it's a very, very important visit from not only from the point of view from Pakistan, but also from the regional context. And maybe he also, because we think of tariff also came into discussion. So from the Pakistan point of view, this is a very important and especially in the backdrop of the Indian aggression and Indian delegations meeting in the time to come, and before that he's meeting with Field Marshal Asim. That this is a diplomatic edge Pakistan has gained. And this is the
Brigadier retired Shahid Jagir, senior analyst, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Naqvi, how are you looking at this particular visit by Chief of Army Staff Field Marshal Syed Munir to the US? Also, a number of very important points which have been highlighted by Brigadier Jagir. The dominant agenda, the resolution of the Kashmir dispute as per the UN resolutions, India suspending unilaterally and illegally the Indus Water Treaty. We've also seen that praise, acknowledgement and the recognition of Pakistan's counterterrorism efforts as far as those operations by ISIS-K are concerned. Can we expect a great deal of support from the US after this particular visit when it comes to Pakistan dealing with the threat of Fitna al-Khawarij, the banned TTP and other militant organizations which have been using the Afghan soil since the Kabul takeover by the Afghan Taliban?
If you look at the nature of reception in Washington It's just unprecedented. You know, this is perhaps it's kind of the unique and unprecedented meeting with the US President at the White House. So it holds a lots of meaning itself. Is a Field Marshal is the war victorious, you know, is a winner in with India. And for Trump administration, and especially Trump is interested in sort of have a counterterrorism cooperation, number one. Number two, he is interested in minerals. Third, he is interested in crypto cooperation. So all these possibilities of the cooperation, Pakistan has extended very positive gestures to the Trump administration. So these are the points what I believe that there will be some breakthrough, and eventually Pakistani leadership is optimistic that Trump will play its role to resolve Kashmir and other remaining issues.
Right. Mr. Khalid, what are your expectations? What could Pakistanis be expecting out of this particular unprecedented interaction that is going to be happening between Chief of Army Staff Field Marshal Saeed and US President Donald Trump?
Well, I won't go into the future. It's not safe to predict what's going to happen. But what it does show is that in the United States, as compared to Trump's first term, Trump's second term has shown us that America has regained its confidence in Pakistan as a reliable partner, as a long trusted partner with a history of maybe 6-7 decades. And the limitation of Indo-American strategic partnership have shown. I, having, you know, from my own professional experience, I was always doubtful that this strategic cooperation can go very far because of India's own outlook, own interests. And now time is showing that indeed that goody-goody phase, embraces and all, that is gone. Now it is serious business, very, very tough business. And America is treating India like any other, you know, any other partner.
Mr. Syed, Khalid, Foreign Ambassador, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Almas, HaiderNaqvi, Foreign Affairs expert, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.